I was always very interested in science and engineering in general. So when I was finishing up high school, I applied to the University of Waterloo, got into the mechanical engineering program.
I think that it was very close to the start of that program, like within the first year. Andy and I kind of realized that we were very similar people in the sense that we like doing things a bit more hands-on.
In my first year as a student, was at a company called Advanced Material Handling in Abbotsford. And I was doing a lot of design work, but one of the jobs that I did while I was there was to program and run the CNC torch cutting machine. That was like my first exposure to actually like programming and running CNC machines. I was like, damn, this is really fun.
We ended up finding a place with some other people that were in our program, and we ended up all being in the same house together. I also had a 3D printer at the time, an original tricolor Mendel. Well, it was a single color Mendel that I upgraded to a tricolor.
And I got my second job, co-op job, internship at a startup. And that company made these machines that handwrite letters. They basically used the first generation Shapokos and stuck a pen to the machine to handwrite these letters. And the idea was that they would do like direct mail advertising. That was kind of my exposure to hobby CNCing.
I had personally really dove into 3D printing, and I'd been following the 3D printing market and seeing the sort of accessibility that it was bringing to at-home manufacturing, making small businesses, just kind of empowering the day-to-day maker. I was one of those makers, and I was benefiting from having that technology with me. At first, because he was trying to make prototypes as quickly as possible, I was actually charging him to 3D print parts for him because there wasn't really 3D printing widely available at the time.
And obviously we developed a friendship through that, started to hang out more, and obviously we were all going to class together. So I started this elective called BET 300. It stands for Business, Entrepreneurship, and Technology. And the idea was to take an idea and turn it into a company.
Andy had actually come up with this idea for, the entire basis for starting the company was actually, how can we make a linear movement system that's affordable?
Maybe I can turn this whole CNC idea, this work that we're doing on the linear motion stuff, and make that into a company. People aren't really doing CNC machines at this time. So we started implementing these linear motion systems into building our own CNC machines.
Come up with this idea of using V-wheels on a 45-degree rotated L-shaped extrusion.
I think before this point, because Chris was already helping me so much with like designing and building the machines, we kind of had this casual conversation, which was like, you're putting a lot of effort into doing this. Do you want to be like my co-founder? And he was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do it. It was like a 30-second conversation.
Turning your ideas into real physical objects can be an expensive and time-consuming process.
Within the year, or it might have been just slightly longer than a year, we got it ready to launch on Kickstarter, actually. The first machine design, which was the Mill 1.
And so that was the birth of the Mill 1. It was a machine about the size of a microwave, and it had a working area, I think about 8 by 11, so about the sheet of paper, about the size of a sheet of paper. We launched a Kickstarter, a 30-day Kickstarter, I think like just before we were going to go back to school. And we told ourselves, if we don't meet our goal, we'll just shut the company down, and like we'll focus on our education, we'll just graduate. You know, that'll be the end of the story.
We did not have a lot of money when we started off. Andy was like barely paying rent, and I had like a little bit more savings than him, but it wasn't gonna last forever.
And so we raised just over $60,000, miraculously. We went to this class project, to this $60,000 funded Kickstarter, but we're going into our second year essentially. And we have to build like 130 Mill 1s And so that was kind of the new challenge.
Both me and Andy's rooms became places where active prototypes were being worked on. We'd have to like push it off to the side to do our classwork, and then put our laptops away and use our desks next to our beds to go back to doing work.
We had like 8 hours of classes and the labs and the homework, and then I would spend like work till like 2 or 3 a.m. every day to like buy the parts and help the customers and like perfect the design and try to 3D print all these parts using our house, like our student house, as our factory.
We got the permission of the rest of our friends that we were living in that unit with. There was this really weird room between two rooms in the basement that no one really knew what it was supposed to be for. And so everyone was okay with us just using that as kind of like a cutting space. So we would actually, it's this really small closed off space that we put our machines into and use those to cut out projects and test things out.
So all these parts would come mailed in and we would put them in the garage, and we had in our laundry room, I think at first like 3 3D printers. And I think at some point it became 9. And like every like 4 hours, like one of us would go down and like harvest the printed parts and like just start another batch of parts. I think we gave like ourselves like 4 months to actually build and ship the machines. We accomplished shipping the machines on time.
If someone placed an order, you know, we'd be in the garage, even in the winter time with cold hands, just counting nuts and bolts and putting them in bags to make it all work.
From that point on, we just kept selling more Mill 1s. I think we did that for about 1.5 years. That's sort of how we got started. And since then, we just tried to listen to the customers to know what sort of machines they want. I just know how hard it was to use Sienci machines in the past. And I also know how bad, not bad, but like how primitive the technology was when we first started.
When the opportunity arose and me and Andy were like, this is really cool, let's start working on this. It didn't really feel like a business. It kind of just felt like a passion project that, you know, you're excited about it, so other people are excited about it, and then that can kind of just continue on.
One of the limiting factors for the Mill 1 is the size. The bigger the machine is, the bigger your projects can be, and the bigger the projects can be, the more valuable they are. We saw that people wanted the same philosophy of it's affordable, it's easy to use, you put it together, it's simple, but they just wanted something bigger. So that's how the long mill machine came to be.
The size of the company kept changing and our scope of work kept changing. It's very special when you can find something that you realize could really be improved to help people in their lives. And also, to a degree, since I'm kind of a customer for our own machines, it feels like I'm making something that I would want as well.
We took the same idea with the angle aluminum and the V-wheels, and we just extended it out into a bigger machine. So the first machines we built were the 12x12 working area, the 12x30 working area, and the 30x30 working area. The 2 most popular machines was the X-Carve and the Shapeoko. The biggest thing that people complained about at that time was the belts, because all the machines, all of the hobby machines of that size and form factor would use belts, and they would stretch over time, and people had to adjust them.
Yeah, we basically had to make the call of like, okay, if we want to keep the company rolling, we have to roll the dice again. Similar to what we did with the first Kickstarter. When you start from scratch for a new platform, there's way more optimizations you can put into it than you can put into like an existing system. So yeah, Andy and I just showed up one day and we just said, hey guys, next week we're having a Kickstarter launch.
That month, we had raised about $436,000. And that was way more that was more money than we had ever made, like through the whole history of the company.
Convinced that that was what we had to do at the time. That was the right play. The night that the Kickstarter went live and we just sold so many up front, that we had already succeeded. And Andy and I were live streaming, being very excited about it. Over the next couple of weeks, we're like, okay, let's start gearing up to make this really come together.
Yeah, so we did our first batch of machines. We also pretty much hit our time targets. I think a year into doing that, we also moved to a new building. When we first moved in, I think we took up about 2,100 square feet.
Some of the new section of the office that's opened up.
As time went on, we kind of formed our own communities. We have like the longmill and altmill user group, and we have the forum, and then now we have like all sorts of different CNC groups, like the CNC beginners group and the CNC entrepreneurs group. We never like raised any money. We don't really have anyone to answer to.
I think for me, I've never been seeking a big payout being involved in this business from the time I started it even till now. I've always wanted to do right by the customer in terms of, we're all a community. We're all in this community for different reasons. I'm also, this is a bit secondary, but I think what's also very nice about us being so open about everything we've done, whether you want to see the firmware that our machines run or the software or the hardware or anything really, the circuit designs if you want. I want it so that, and I've always wanted it so that if at any point in time, if our business couldn't survive anymore, people wouldn't feel like they were stuck with paperweights.
So a lot of the decisions that we make for the company is just purely out of what do we think would be better? Like, what do we think would be better for the customers? What do we think would be better for the community? Someone who's a stakeholder that doesn't have any skin in the game in the CNC space, like we don't need to make them happy. For the Longmill Mark I, we launched it in 2019, I believe. And we were building that machine, I want to say for like around 2 years.
My goal for CNCs has always been to keep moving towards that direction of a machine that can kind of tell you everything that might be going wrong so you can fix it.
When we started developing the Mark II, we were selling enough Longmill Mark Is to justify, to know that we could pay the cost of the die and use that to make the machines better. We kept seeing that the Longmill was becoming more and more popular.
And there's a lot of people that have made good CNC machines even 50 years ago. It's how can you make a good CNC machine that's cheap? About 5 years ago, one of those realizations was the controls for the machine, like how you interact with the machine, that needs to change. The way that the existing options that existed at the time, they weren't intuitive. And so then that's when I started working on G-Sender.
At this point, we were getting like just massive amounts of metal, and it would cost us, I don't know, maybe like $13 to $15 to machine each rail. And we're like, nah, I don't know. I think we're probably shipping like 200 machines, and each machine needs 3 rails. So imagine like $40 per machine, and then if we're shipping like 200 machines a month. So we would get 20-foot rails into our shop, and then we like cut them down to the long mill sizes. Now we have a team of like, I don't know, 8 or so engineers. Some of the team members that have been here for a number of years, and they live and breathe CNC. They do this stuff every day.
It's important to always keep in mind the fundamentals, like making a machine that runs reliably, making it so that it can run on accessible hardware. We like making it so that our machines can run on even like lower powered computers so that there's not much additional upfront cost.
The long mill works great, but what's the next level from there? Like, where do our customers graduate to? And the other part of it was that we knew that there's always a market for like machines that were just going to be used for like production and practical use. Like, they are not for beginners necessarily. The concept around the alt mill was if we don't have to worry about money so much, like the cost or the budget for the development of the machine, what's like the best like intersection between cost and performance? I think it encouraged us to take bigger risks on our development. I think the thing that makes hardware in general difficult is that not only you have to design the machine, but like finding a way to produce it at scale and working with multiple vendors and manufacturers, and also making sure every single part is perfect, and also like figuring out how to ship and package it. There's so many people involved, there's so many steps. And yeah, a lot of the learning process was just how do we work together as a team better, and how do we manage projects at this scale better. Yeah, we have a good reputation. We've built machines that people believe are good value and they make a positive impact in people's lives. You know, I've met a lot of people who started with a mill one or a long mill, and they find like they create their careers around it. They can make a living off of it. Us as a company have been making so many products and vertically integrating as far as possible, and developing the technology that goes into the machines ourselves rather than like third party, going down the third party direction. We don't care about the money, we don't care about the time, we just get like, it's such a blessing to work on like an industry and products that we genuinely care about, and we can show that in the development that we do. And to think like, okay, from year 0 to year 10, like so much has happened. Like we've accomplished so much. We built so much new technology. And now we've gone from 0 to 100, and now it's like 100 to 1,000. Like what is that gonna look like?
I am really grateful for other people that are in the community that do open source work as well, sharing their ideas back into the community. To some people that we've reached out to that have been on board with our vision, like Terrier for the Gerbil Howl project, or Andrew for helping us put the super longboard together. Even some early collaboration with Stuart, who works on Kirimoto, which is like online cam software. A lot of really smart people out there, a lot of really nice people out there, and it's been great to be company with all of you guys. So thank you for all that.
Anyways, it's been 10 years. It feels like a long time, but also not a long time. We've had a lot of people part of our journey. So for every customer, beta tester, employee, volunteer, person I've met, thank you for being part of the journey. And we'll see you in another 10 years.